Welcome to North Point Online. We're excited that you're joining us, especially if it's your first time. We're all looking for ways to stay connected right now. And to help, we have created some resources right on our website. A great way to stay connected is through community. Maybe a weekly online group is the place for you. To sign up, fill out the form on our groups page. And if you have kids, we know it can be hard to keep them engaged, so we have lots of great content for them as well. Go to the This Week page and follow Upstreet and Wombaland on Facebook or Instagram for fun ideas and activities all week long. Lastly, we know that many people are in need of help right now. Check out the resources page to let us know how we can help you or to find ways that you can help or pray for others. Now, we've got a great service planned for you, so get comfortable and we'll get started.
Good morning and welcome to North Point Online. I'm Julie and I will be your online host for today. If this is your very first time joining us, I am so glad that you're tuning in. We would love to connect with you to get to know you a little bit better and to find out what we can do to partner with you right now. If you're watching us on npaustin.com, look for the words Connect with Us at the bottom of the page, or if you're on Facebook, click the link that's posted in the comments. And if you're watching us live, join in the chat on Facebook and engage with other people who are also watching live right now. We have a really great service plan for you today. I'm going to hand things off to Chris and Dom and the North Point Band. They're going to lead us in some really great music. And then our service programming director, Jeremy Edelin, will be here with part 2 of our current message series called On the Other Side. Now, if we were meeting in person, this is the part of the welcome where I would tell you to stand up and say hello to somebody next to you. But since I can't do that, here's what I want you to do instead. Take out your phone and send a text to somebody who could use maybe a little bit of encouragement on a Sunday morning, or maybe somebody who you miss sitting next to in the row beside you. Tell them good morning, send them an emoji or a funny GIF, or maybe invite them to watch with you if they aren't already. While you're at it, join me in the chat on Facebook and post an emoji right now that tells us how your week has been. We'll get started with today's service. I'll see you back here in just a little while.
Is falling and fear is calming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. So when my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echoing my soul. Every season you keep repeating your promises to me. Now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. 'Cause when my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. 'Cause you are a waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are a waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I could deserve it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Every week, we come together, even if it's through a screen, to sing these songs and to listen to these messages. And every week, we stand here and tell you, thank you for continuing to give to North Point and allowing us to do this week after week. But why do we believe that giving is so important? It's not just about the ability to put together an hour-long service once a week. It goes so much deeper than that. We give as a way of recognizing that our security and our hope is found in our Heavenly Father, because we believe that when we take steps to trust Him with our finances, it helps us shift our perspective from relying on the world to relying on God, and that's where we find true freedom. We give because God demonstrated His reckless love for us through the gift of His Son, Jesus Christ. So many of you have chosen to practice generosity and to take those steps of faith here at North Point. And we want to honor your sacrifice because we are so grateful for you and for your generosity. Thank you for your gifts.
Have you ever thought about the idea that wherever you go, there you are? I've experienced that in my life. In fact, last fall, my wife, Ashley, and I, we took a trip out to Enchanted Rock. And I was so excited about this trip for a couple of reasons. One, I love to explore. I love to get out and experience adventure and go hiking and camping and all those things. But I was also excited for it because it had been a busy past couple of weeks. It was like everything that could possibly go on in our lives was happening at the exact same time leading up to this point. And because of that, I was just excited to get away, to get some rest, to get some recharge time. But we didn't plan very well because everything was going on and everything was busy. And so we were going to leave on a Sunday, come back on a Tuesday, and it got to about 4 p.m. in the afternoon on Sunday when we first decided to start packing. And the packing went pretty quick because we knew we had to be in a rush to get out there in time. So we literally just threw everything in our car. We threw the dogs in our car, and then we took off and we started driving out to Enchanted Rock. It's about an hour drive, and it was great because, I put on our favorite road trip playlist and just began to relax and hopefully let the stress just kind of die away. But quickly, I realized that it was getting dark. It was getting dark out as we were driving, and by the time we finally got there, it was completely nighttime. It was completely dark, and there was no moonlight on this particular night, so it was pitch black out at Enchanted Rock. And so we drive in, it's pitch black. All I can see is what I can see with my headlights. And so we drive around looking for our camping site. And I remember shining the lights into the different tents and hoping that I wasn't waking people up. But we finally find our spot, we park, we walk out, we see it. It's a little bit of a distance away from the parking spot to our camping site. But we start to unload, and to be honest, the unloading process was a little bit stressful because we had the dogs, so we got them tied up, we got them fed, but then we had to dodge ant piles, and we were unpacking everything, and I had to get the grill going so it'd be warm enough for dinner. And then not only that, but we forgot a flashlight, a real flashlight, because we packed so fast and we left so fast. And so all we had were the flashlights on our phones. And so we're literally just walking from the car to our campsite, unloading everything, but we finally get there, and we finally get it done. And then it's time to put up the tent because the tent just feels so good to get up first. And so it's one of those tents where you kind of just unpack it and it all just kind of pops up and you snap it into place. It was the perfect tent for this scenario. So we get it out of the bag and we start unfolding it and we start to unpack it and pull it up. But it gets a little stuck. And I give it a little tug and I hear like the worst possible sound you could possibly hear when setting up a tent in pitch black night. I hear this noise, which means I just tore a big ol' hole in the side of the tent. And at this point, I'd kind of held it together, but this was kind of my breaking point. I was pretty frustrated and stressed at this point. I was hungry. We were both hungry. We were tired. We'd been up since 5 a.m. this morning. And when I ripped that tent, I said a couple of words that I can't repeat right now. And I also had the realization, and I remembered that this was not our tent, that we had borrowed it from a friend. We borrowed it from somebody else, which means I was doing all the math inside of me thinking about the fact that, okay, not only did we rip the tent, but now I have to replace it and I have to have that awkward conversation that says, hey, I ripped your tent, but thanks for letting me borrow it. And all these things kind of culminated together and I was just stressed and frustrated and fuming at this point. And so we finally get the tent up and I literally just Frankenstein taped the side of it so the no bugs can get in the middle of the night. And we finally eat dinner really late, and we go in our tent, and we lay down to go to sleep. And Ashley passes out. She was positive and gracious and loving the entire time. But I laid down, and I remember looking up at the tent, and I was just fuming at this point. I was so frustrated. And in that moment, I was experiencing something that I think is true for all of us, a reality that we all experience in our life, and it's a reality that wherever you go, there you are. Wherever you go, there you are. You see, because I was frustrated and anxious and stressed before we ever came to Enchanted Rock. And for some reason, I just thought that by getting out of town, I was going to leave all that stuff at home. When in reality, I just brought it all with me. I just brought all of that frustration with me. And this is true for all of us because we all have an internal self. We have an emotional state, an emotional posture, and we bring this with us wherever we go, both the good and the bad. You know, sometimes I think we can shove it down in hopes that it doesn't pop up, but then other times, like I experienced, we hit the perfect storm and it all just comes boiling out. And you know what? I think we have great intentions. Like most of the time we have great intentions. I had good intentions. I wanted to experience some rest and some recharge time. But intentions are not enough. The thing that we have to pay attention to is our direction. because our direction is ultimately going to determine where we go. Our direction is going to determine where we end up eventually. And my direction was off. I was frustrated before we even left. Regardless of where we went, I was going to be frustrated in the end. And we all have an other side that we want to get to. We all have an other side of our intentions. We want to get to the other side of our intentions, our hopes, our dreams, our desires, our goals. Perhaps it's with our marriage, or maybe it's with our relationships, or maybe even with our finances or our faith, whatever it might be. We all have an other side that we want to get to one day and we want to see. But if we don't align our direction with our intentions, we'll never get to experience those things. Not only that, but one of the other things that we have to keep in mind is that to get to where you want to be, you have to know where you are. To get to where you want to be, you have to know where you are. This isn't a difficult concept to understand. I mean, if I want to go to Enchanted Rock, all I have to do is plug it in and my phone's going to ask me, okay, well, where are you starting? If you go out on a trail, you see the trail map and you're trying to figure out where you're headed, you always look for the dot that says you are here. This is true in that case, but I think it's also just true of life that, we all want to get somewhere, but in order to get somewhere with our marriage or our relationships or our faith or whatever it might be, we first have to understand where we currently are. That's easy for us to agree upon, but one of the things that takes it a step further, or more importantly, that we have to understand is that to get to where you want to be, you have to know who you are. You have to know who you are, because you take yourself with you wherever you go. You take all the good, all the bad with you wherever you go, and it's going to influence the direction that you're headed and what you experience in the future as a result. I think we all know this intuitively, and we see it in ourselves, and we see it in the lives of others as well. We've all seen somebody who's gone from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, and the same issue keeps popping up over and over and over again. And it's not that it's the other person that they're on the other side of. No. It's the same issue that they keep bringing, their own tensions, their own frustrations that they keep bringing into the relationship, regardless of who it is. Why? Because they bring themselves with them wherever they go. Or think about somebody who goes from job to job to job, career to career, company to company. And it's always the boss's fault. It's always their coworker. It's always the culture of the organization. When in reality, it's just a frustrated person bringing their frustrations into every environment that they end up going into. You see, we can't just know where we are. We have to know who we are, because who we are is going to influence the direction that we go, and it's going to tell us what changes we need to make to ourselves in order to go in the direction that we want to go. But something we have to keep in mind, and something that gets us along the way, is this. I've had the privilege to be mentored by our lead pastor, Buck Giebelhaus, since I was a teenager, and I've learned so much sitting on the other side of him. But one of the things I've heard him say so much, and I even hear him say it today, is this. He says, it's not our weaknesses that will get us, it's our blind spots. It's not our weaknesses that take us off direction. It's our blind spots. It's those things that we can't necessarily see, those personal characteristics, and those are the things that take us off of the direction that we want to go. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I wonder if I have blind spots, then I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but yes, you do, because we all have blind spots. Now, this isn't a new concept. This is an age-old idea. In fact, there was a king who lived thousands of years ago. His name was Solomon, and he's fascinating because he was widely considered to be one of the most wealthy and successful and wisest people to have ever lived. In fact, if you Google, don't do it right now because you're in church, but if you Google richest people of all time, you will most likely find his name on a lot of the lists that you come up with. But Solomon, towards the end of his life, because of all the life experience he had and all the wisdom that he gleaned over his life, he wrote a set of principles in a book that came to be called Proverbs. And Proverbs is in the Old Testament, and it is just packed full with incredible pieces of wisdom that anybody can apply in their life, regardless of your faith background. And Solomon was no stranger to blind spots. In fact, here's what he says as it relates to him. He wrote this in Proverbs. He says, there is a way that seems right to a man. There's a way that seems right to a man. There's a path that we can go down, or we can look down, or we can see, and we say to ourselves, this looks like it's going to take me where I want to go. But, in the end, it leads to death. But in the end, it leads to death. And this isn't death in a physical sense. It could mean that, but this is death to the important things in our life. That there's a way that seems right to us, and sometimes if we go down that path, we're going to experience a death in an important piece of our life. It could kill our relationships. It could kill our marriage. It could ruin our finances. It could destroy our careers. The list could go on and on and on. And Solomon is saying that we have this incredible ability to convince ourselves of things that ultimately hurt us in the long run. You know, we say things like, well, I just want to do what makes me happy. And I just want to do what makes me feel good. And Solomon is saying in those moments, we convince ourselves of something that could potentially hurt us later on. And Solomon is writing this down in Proverbs, and a couple chapters later, he actually writes the exact same thing again. It's like he was going through and he was writing all of his life principles, and he goes, you know what? That one was really important. I want to make sure they don't lose sight of that one. I need to make sure I write that one down again. To which we go, okay, what do we do with that information? If there is this thing inside of us, it's kind of scary to think about, that can potentially harm ourselves. We can sabotage our own lives. How do we ensure that that doesn't happen? How do we make sure that our blind spots don't get us? And earlier on in Proverbs, Solomon tells us just that. He tells us what it looks like for us to align our direction with our intention, what we need to focus on in order to do that, so that we can get to the other side of our intentions, our hopes, our dreams. And it's a simple but profound statement that he says just a couple of chapters earlier. And he says this, he says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Whether you're in your living room and you're watching with family or friends, or maybe you're watching this on your phone or listening in your car, or you're up at 1 a.m. later on, whatever it might be, I want you to say this with me out loud. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. The unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. You know, what is Solomon getting at there? He's essentially saying what he said earlier. He's saying that the unfaithful, not necessarily unfaithful in a relationship, but the unfaithful to life, to God, they can convince themselves of a path that's ultimately going to lead to destruction in their life. And there's this duplicity between their intentions and their direction, and it keeps them off. Their blind spots continue to get them. But he gives the answer. He gives what we focus on in the first half of that proverb. He says that the integrity of the upright guides them. I don't know about you, but for me, integrity has kind of lost its power. That word has kind of lost its power in my life. Growing up, I was in Taekwondo for 12 years. I did it from when I was 5 to 17, and it was awesome. It was a huge part of my childhood, and I loved it. And one of the things that we had at our Taekwondo school was on the wall with all the mirrors, above all the mirrors, we had all of these words, all of these characteristics that people can have, all these things, these kind of themes that we talked about. Some of them were called perseverance or confidence or self-control, words like that. And on the wall, there was this word, integrity. And what was really cool is I went away for a tournament one time, and I went away with some people that I was competing with, and while I was gone, my parents transformed my bedroom. They redesigned it to look like the Taekwondo school. And so they painted this like kicker guy on the side of the wall, but then they also took all these little wooden letters and they put these words on my ceiling. And so I came home and I saw this, and it looked just like the Taekwondo school. And I remember laying in bed looking up at my ceiling in my childhood. And I saw these words, perseverance, confidence, self-control. And then I saw that word, integrity. And I would think about what these meant. But to be honest, just over the years, and I think because our culture uses it a lot, the word integrity has kind of lost its weight or its power. But there was another word there that for me became synonymous, and it had a lot of weight and power in terms of what integrity was really all about. And that word that was on my ceiling was character. Character. And Solomon is saying that the integrity or the character of the upright is what guides them, helps them go down the path that they ultimately want to go. It's not their successes, it's not their talent, it's not their good looks, it's not because they have more willpower than other people. It is a person's character that leads them and guides them. But the thing that we have to keep in mind when it comes to character is that it's kind of tricky to define. It's a little bit elusive because one person's definition of character can be very different from another person's definition of what good character looks like. And we could spend a lot of time unpacking this, but for the sake of our discussion today, I want to use a already well thought out definition of character from Pastor Andy Stanley in his book, Louder than words. Here's how he defines it. He says, character is the will to do what is right, as defined by God, regardless of personal cost. Character is the will to do what is right. It is a predetermined will to do what is right, not defined by my emotions or my feelings or what I think, but defined by God, regardless of the cost, regardless of the personal cost, time, energy, money, regardless of who's watching or who isn't watching. Character is this unwavering focus on what is right. And we all know people with great character. And the reason I know that we know them is because these are the kinds of people that we want to work for. These are the kinds of people that we want to hire. These are the people that we want to marry one day, or we want to do life with or be friends with. These are the people that we want our kids to marry and be friends with. Not only that, but we've all had people that we've sat on the other side of them, and we are around them and we hear their life story and we go, man, I want my life, I want my character to emulate theirs. Those are people of incredible character. But the thing we have to remember with incredible character is that we don't naturally lean in the direction of upright character. We don't naturally lean in the direction of incredible or great character. All you have to do to know that this is true is meet a toddler. I mean, you don't have to convince a toddler to lie or get angry or throw a tantrum. All of that stuff just happens naturally. But character, on the other hand, character is built intentionally and on purpose. Because when we don't, chaos results in our life. We eventually go down a path that leads to some sort of destruction or leads to some sort of death that we experience to some important area in our lives. See, character is built intentionally and on purpose. I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson says as it relates to character. He was a great thinker of the 19th century, and he has this famous quote that says this. He says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." You see, our character and the direction that we've gone in the past and the direction we want to go in the future are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. See, your character is going to determine the direction you go and where you ultimately end up. It's going to determine what you experience on the other side. If you want to change your direction, change your character, and your character will change your direction. I want to say that again because I don't want you to miss that. Change your character, and your character will change your direction. It's going to determine the story that you tell. It's going to determine the legacy that you leave. It's simple but profound. It's easy to understand, but so difficult to apply in our lives. But it's the very thing that's going to help you get to the other side of your hopes, your dreams, your intentions, your goals, your desires one day. I remember when I woke up that morning at Enchanted Rock, the first thing I noticed when I opened my eyes is that my Frankenstein taped hole did not hold overnight. And it was open again, and which wasn't a big deal at first, but later on in the day, we found a massive daddy longleg in our tent, which means it came in the middle of the night, which is horrifying to think about. But I woke up and I got some coffee, and Ashley made bacon, and even after coffee and bacon, I was still frustrated from the night before. And so finally she turned to me and she just said, you know what, just go find a rock to sit on and talk to God about it. And so I grabbed my journal and I grabbed a bottle of water and I literally just went on a trail. I went up a hill, I found a rock to sit on where I could see all of Enchanted Rock and I could see the hill country and everything around. And I sat there and I just began to kind of process. And I realized essentially everything I've said up until this point. I realized that I just brought all of that frustration with me. Wherever I was going, I was gonna be where I was just bringing it all with me. But not only that, I was incredibly grateful for Ashley as well, because she had the willingness just to kind of speak into what I was feeling and push me in a different direction. I needed that push, I needed that shift in order to change my direction in that moment. And sometimes I think that's what we all need. That we all need a push. We all need a kind of shove in a different direction to begin to change our character so that our character can change our direction. And so let me ask you, when it comes to the directions that you're headed in life in different areas, is there a direction that is currently leading down a path that is ultimately going to bring destruction in your life? What aspects of your character are you bringing into that? What aspects of your character are you bringing into your marriage, into your relationships, into your career? What aspects of your character are you bringing into your faith? I want to talk to those of you who would consider yourselves to be Jesus followers right now, really quick. because on the nature of my job, I sit on the other side of people a lot, and they tell me things about faith, and we talk about faith. But one of the things I hear all the time is I just want to grow closer to God. I just want to know God in a deeper way. And I think that's fantastic. I think it's great to want to grow in your relationship with your Heavenly Father. But most of the time I find this as well, is that most people don't want to make the changes necessary to their character, but they want to reap the benefits of a faith that has done so. Most people don't want to build their character in such a way, but they want to have a faith that has built character and has that foundation behind it. Meaning, so often we think that we want to check the Christian boxes. We just need to read our Bible consistently, pray consistently, serve consistently, give consistently, all of these things, and then we're going to be close to God. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes it takes a bigger shift, a bigger change. I love what an author describes. He had a church attender, he's a pastor, a church attender described to him how he felt about his faith. And here's what that church attender said. He said, "I was a Christian for 22 years. But instead of being a 22-year-old Christian, I was a 1-year-old Christian 22 times. I just kept doing the same things over and over and over again." You see, I think that's a fantastic way to describe how a lot of people feel in relation to their faith. Sometimes there is a bigger shift. It's not about doing just the same things over and over and over again. Think about it like this. I love to go to the beach. Who doesn't love to go to the beach? But when I'm at the beach, for some reason, I always get this desire to go on a run. It's like I'm not much of a runner, but when I'm at the beach, I just think, you know what, I'm a runner today. I'm going to start running today. And so I'll put on my running shoes and I'll go on a run. And I notice a lot of things as I'm running. I hear a lot of things. My feet hitting the sand. I hear the people. I hear the waves crashing. And then I decide I don't want to be a runner anymore. So I turn around and I shift directions and I start going the opposite way. But when I turn around, it's like all of a sudden this massive wind hits me and it overpowers everything else I can hear. All I can hear is this wind. It's been behind me the whole time, but I didn't notice it until I turned direction and went the other way. And I think that's what our faith is like sometimes. That we have our character and we're going in one direction, and we might want to check all the Christian boxes, but we never shift our character to begin to lean in and notice that God has been with us the entire time. And sometimes it takes a bigger shift. It takes us surrendering some aspect of our life to our Heavenly Father in order to begin going on a direction that is closer to Him and growing in our relationship with Him in new ways, experiencing His presence in our life in a new way. But you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, Jeremy, even if I identify those gaps, even if I see the directions I'm headed and the changes that I need to make, how do I practically do that? Well, the incredible news is that you're already halfway there, because knowing is half the battle. You've already taken a massive step in the direction of changing your character just by being self-aware of those things. And there's a lot of different things you can do, but at this point, you really have to get your hands dirty. You have to reject passivity and lean in the direction of discomfort and begin to take those actionable steps to build your character. Maybe for you, it means you have to have a conversation with somebody, an apology. And it's something that you already know you've been meaning to say to them for a long time, but you finally need to have that conversation. Maybe for you, it's a secret that you need to get out, that you feel burdened, that you feel like you're in chains to this thing that you're always walking around with. And you finally need to let go of that, get it out. It might create some discomfort, but experience the freedom on the other side of getting that thing out of you. Maybe for you, it means you need to not just try harder, but ask for help, somebody to help you begin that discipline that's going to change your direction. Or ask for help to stop the habit that's robbing your character and keeping you off the direction that you want to go. Or maybe for you, you need to go back in order to go forward. You know, our emotional health is an incredible component of our character. But sometimes, if you find yourself just feeling so full of emotion and you don't know where it comes from, sometimes we have to go back and see where that is. Look at where that is in our past in order to move forward and build our character and change our direction in the future. Those are all ways in which you can change your character and watch your character begin to change your direction. But there's one other thing I want to talk about. And this is a huge question that all of us can ask today, that we can do practically today, that we can ask those around us, our loved ones, our family, our coworkers, those who know us and live on the other side of us. It's a question that reveals our blind spots. It shines a spotlight on our character and helps us understand the steps that we need to take to get better. And that question is this: is what's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like to be on the other side of me, of my life, of my character? It's a simple question, but it is so profound and so powerful, and here's why. So often we think that our character is just ours, that other people can't see it. But the sobering reality is that your character is on display to everyone around you, especially those people who are closest to you. And the reason is because they live on the other side of your character every single day, and because of that, they can identify your blind spots in a way that you're just not able to do. And so my challenge to you is to pick a couple of people, 2 or 3 people, and I want you to give them a heads up and say, hey, I want your honest opinion. I'm working on my character. I want to make some changes, and I want to ask you a question. And then ask, what's it like to be on the other side of me? And then I want you to zip your mouth closed and put the key in your pocket. Don't argue. Don't push back. Don't get defensive. Just listen. Because the information that they are going to give you, if you allow them to be honest with you, the information that they give you is gold to help you understand what you need to do to change your character. And the areas that you feel the most defensive are probably the areas and the blind spots that you need to see the most. But sometimes when we ask this question, we hear 3 different things. We can hear some encouraging things. We can hear things, man, that was really exciting to hear. We hear some surprising things. Well, I didn't know that. But also we hear things that perhaps hurt our feelings. And if you don't hear things that hurt your feelings, then that person might not be telling the truth to you. But we hear things that hurt our feelings and we kind of walk away and go, what do we do with these? And the beautiful thing is that we can bring those things to God. We don't have to navigate those alone. That we can go to God and we can say, God, I asked this question. I took this step. I'm trying to change my character. God, and here's what they said. And I don't know if I agree with that piece. And that was way out of line. No, God, you're right. You're right. Okay, God, I'm trying to change my direction. Can you help me with this? God, can you show me what it looks like to build my character? And what's amazing is that when we invite God in that way, that God meets us, he guides us, he leads us, he molds us, he shapes us to be the men and women that he wants us to be. And in those moments when he meets us, it's not like we have to bring a perfect self to him. He doesn't expect perfection. He just wants to be a part of the process. So often we think we have to bring perfection, but no, God just delights in the fact that we want him to be a part of the process and that we want to be closer to him and that we want to better ourselves. It's a part of taking off the old version of ourselves and discovering the new, who we were made to be, found and made in the image of God, found in Jesus Christ. And for me personally, when I was sitting on that rock, the small rock next to the big enchanted rock, when I was sitting on that rock and I was processing and I was thinking, I was trying to invite God in, I had this realization. God kind of allowed everything in my life to slow down for a moment so that I could hear something from him. I noticed that the cows were mooing nearby. There were dogs barking. I noticed there was a road nearby I could hear. There was construction off in the distance. There were people on the trail. But at the same time, I began to realize that wherever I went, there was always going to be something. I had this ideal of a perfect scenario where I was going to be at peace with God finally, at peace with my life. And God just showed me, no, that's not true. That he is with me and he can comfort me and I can be at peace wherever I am. And in that moment, I saw God's faithfulness and his goodness in my life. I was able to take a step back and see that. And it's something I'm learning and continuing to learn every single day, but really that is my hope for you as well. That you would get to a place in your life where you can look back and that you can see his faithfulness and your goodness because of the steps that you've taken, because of shifting your direction, that you can begin to change your character, and in doing so, you allow your character to change your direction. You can experience an incredible marriage in the future. You can experience incredible relationships. You can love your job, love your career. You can experience a faith that you never thought possible because you were willing to change your character and allow it to change your direction. That is my hope for you, and that you can look back one day and appreciate and see God's faithfulness in your life. To wrap up, I want to read what happens when we live a life of great character. And it's actually found in the book of Psalms in the Old Testament. It's a journal entry or a prayer that was written down by Solomon's dad, King David. And here's what he says in that point in his life. He says, "Lord, who may dwell in your sanctuary? Who may live on your holy hill? In other words, it's just a fancy way of saying, God, who can be close to you? He says this, he says, he whose walk is blameless, he who does what is righteous, who speaks truth from his heart and has no slander on his tongue, who does his neighbor no wrong, who keeps his oath even when it hurts. What happens in that person's life because of their character? What happens in the future? He who does these things will never be shaken. He who does these things will never be shaken. They will stand firm regardless of what life throws at them. He who does these things will never be shaken. And that is my hope for you, is that you would build your character to a point where it changes your direction. And later on in life, when a blind spot pops up or something comes your way, that you would never be shaken. But you have to change your character so your character can change your direction. Would you pray with me? God, thank you so much that you love us, that you're for us. God, thank you so much that you want to be a part of the process of us making these changes to ourselves so that we can grow individually and grow in our faith with you. God, would you reveal those things to us? Would you give us wisdom to see? And then would you give us the courage to take those steps even when they're difficult? God, we thank you for your son, Jesus. We just want to understand more of what a relationship with you looks like. And we thank you for the fact that you allow us to make these changes in our lives. God, we pray all this in your son's name. Amen.
Change your character, and your character will change your direction. I hope that's given you something to think about this week. If you're interested in some discussion questions to talk about this topic more, maybe with your small group or your family or your friends, you can find those at npaustin.com/thisweek or on the North Point app. Or you can always just stick around here and we're going to put them up on the screen in just a second. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you have a great week, and we will see you back here next Sunday at North Point Online.